All right, hey guys and gals, Mr. Forgione again. Today we're going to talk a little bit about monopoly profit graph. So we've done the perfect competition profit graph. We've taken a look at the FRQ that you guys had to do and gone over answers there. If that video hasn't posted yet, that video will be posting here in the next couple days. So we'll take a look at that. But now we want to get into monopoly profit. We want to talk about the other type of graph. Now, the good thing on this is that we've talked about the four main business structures or market structures: perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and pure monopoly. The good thing here is that there's only two graphs that we have to know there: perfect competition, which we've been talking about, and then pure monopoly. Now, that's the good thing. The bad thing is, obviously, they're a little bit tricky, and we've seen how in the last video, the side-by-side perfect competition market and firm graphs can be a little bit tricky, particularly when you start throwing in demand shifts and things of that nature. So today we're going to talk about monopoly graphs. Those are a little bit different. Personally, I don't think they're that bad, but I've also been teaching this for a while, and I'm a huge econ nerd, so hopefully they're not that bad. If they are, drop me comments on there. Let me know how I can make them a little bit better, a little bit easier. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to see with a monopoly graph that is different than a perfect competition graph is the fact that there's no side-by-side. There is no side-by-side market and firm. It is just the one graph. And the reason is, how many firms are in a monopoly? Mono meaning one. So in this case, the market is the firm, or the firm is the market. There's only one firm in a monopoly market. So that's our first sort of difference here. The second main difference is the demand curve. Now, we know that in a perfectly competitive market, the demand curve is perfectly elastic. It's a straight horizontal line going across. Here in monopoly, a pure monopoly, the demand curve is downward sloping. So we're going to make this downward sloping demand curve here. And I'm going to have two other things on there as well. We're going to have the AR and the P. So we've got DARP, the demand, the same as the average revenue, the same as the price. So we've got our DARP here. Now, I'm going to do the Dora the Explorer thing again with the weird pause. What is it that we left out from perfect competition demand? What is not on this one that was on perfect competition demand? Got it. Hopefully we got it. Okay. In perfect competition demand, it was Mr. DARP. Here it's just DARP. So what do we leave out? The Mr. We left out the MR, the marginal revenue here. So that's the part that we've sort of left out. So the marginal revenue is actually going to be in between the demand curve and the vertical axis. Okay. The MR curve the Mr. is going to be over here. Now, let me give you one of the reasons. To me, this is the easiest way to understand it. There are other ways that you can explain it, but for me, this is just hopefully the easiest way to understand it. If you look at the marginal revenue and you say, okay, that is the revenue of the last unit that I sold. Okay, that's the revenue I'm getting from the last unit that I sold. Over here, the demand, that is the average revenue. That is the average of the revenue of the different units that I've sold. Okay. The reason that the AR, that the average revenue, is always going to be higher than the MR, I want you to think of it like, for example, some form of technology when it first comes out. Okay, the one I always think of is HD televisions. Now, at this point, HD TVs are everywhere. But I remember when I was working at Harris Corporation back in 2003, one of my bosses, he was the first person I knew that had an HD TV. Had us all over on a Saturday night in his patio to sit around and watch this HD television, right? This thing was, it was a big screen. It was a good size TV, but it wasn't like a movie projector or anything. Back in 2003, I asked him how much he paid for that. He said he paid about $6,000, okay, about $6,000 for that television. That TV today, 17 years later, a comparable model would be somewhere in the ballpark of probably $350 or $400. So what happens with new technology, it's really expensive at the start, and as the technology improves and as more people tend to want to get it, and they tend to mass produce these things, what happens is the price starts lowering. So the MR initially, let's say it starts off about the same point, oh, 6K. Well, then maybe a year later, it's $4,500. So the MR here is $4,500 from that last unit. But that's not the average. The average is going to be higher because you've got all the people that paid the $6,000 first. That factors into the average, right? We got to take all the people that bought this item. And as it continues to go, the MR is going to continue to sort of decrease here because the technology is getting better. And the AR and the demand, that's going to decrease as well. But it's always going to stay ahead of the MR because you've got the average including all the people that bought it first. Another way of looking at it, there's a local bakery that we used to go to that at 6 a.m. their stuff would be pretty expensive, but if you went in there about 11 a.m. before they closed up, they would cut you a deal on pretty much everything because they were just going to have to throw it out anyway. So the MR at that point was much lower than it was earlier in the day, but the average revenue, you had to take into account all the people that paid the higher price that bought it first. All right, so that's our DARP and our MR. The next thing we're going to add on here is our MC, which hopefully remember our MC curve looks like the Nike swoosh, right? All right, so there's our MC. Where do we always want to produce at? Where is our profit max point? Where MR equals MC. That's our golden rule. We always want to produce where MR equals MC. So here's our MC, here's our MR. We're going to go at that intersection. That is the quantity that we want to produce at this particular point, okay? Now, from there, we've got to add one last curve, okay? So there's a fourth curve we're going to add here, which is our ATC, our average total cost. In this particular instance, I'm going to show you a monopoly profit, okay? We're going to start today and just do the monopoly profit graph. So for the ATC, which is our U-shaped curve, that's our upside down umbrella looking guy, we can really, to show a profit, we can put that ATC almost anywhere. It's just got to be somewhere below demand. So it doesn't have to be down here below MR. It's just got to be below demand because essentially what we're doing is comparing the average revenue, how much is coming in, to the average total cost, how much is going out. So let's just pick a point here underneath demand, let's say about there, okay? Now, the next thing I got to do when I draw this is make sure that the bottom of the U, the bottom of that curve, is at whatever point I picked because it intersects the MC curve at its lowest point. So we'll kind of go here, and we'll go here, and that's going to be our ATC. So now, to show the amount of profit, here, what I'm going to do, and I'll put this in purple, hopefully this shows up. I'm going to start off by going to my profit max point. That's this guy right here. And from there, I have to go up to my demand curve or up to my average revenue. I got to show how much money I'm making. So I go from here, I draw a little dotted line up. There's my average revenue. Okay, that's how much I'm making. By comparison, right here, that is my average cost. That is how much I'm paying. So what we see is there's a pretty big gap there between how much is coming in and how much is going out. That means I've got a really good profit per unit. I'm making quite a bit of money here. So that's the average. Average is always per unit. So if I want to take that average profit and say, okay, well, what's my total profit? I have to multiply it by how many units were sold. So there's my quantity. There's how many we sold. So to show that, all I'm going to do is take those 2 points and draw dotted lines over here to the vertical axis. And you can see I've got kind of a square looking guy going on here, right? That square is going to make up my profit. This part is how many people bought it. This part is the profit that I made on each one of those units. So as an example, let's say that we're selling, I don't know, let's say that we're selling a car, okay, that we're manufacturing, you know, Toyota Tacomas or something like that. If let's say the retail price on that or the revenue that we're getting at this particular point on average is maybe 25K. It's probably more, but just roll with me. And let's say that it's costing us 21,000 to produce. That says here, okay, we've got a $4,000 profit on each one of those units. That's the average profit is we made 4,000. We spent 21, we got 25, we made $4,000 on the deal. Now, how many people bought it? If it's I don't know. Let's say if it's 100 people, okay, we made 4,000. 100 people, we made $400,000. If it's 1,000 people, made $4 million, whatever it would be in that particular situation there, right? So now we just sort of color in the amount that we've got right here, okay? And that becomes our profit. That sort of squiggly guy, that square, that is our profit. Okay, on a personal note, guys, I know that you're not going to be back in here in the classroom for the rest of the year. That makes me really sad. I have enjoyed your AP group probably as much as any group, at least in the last 10 years. Um, it's really sad to me that I'm not going to get a chance to see you before graduation. Hopefully, I will get a chance to see you at some point down the line. But just know that that I am very proud of you, and that we're going to keep working on this stuff going forward. But I know it stinks right now, and there's nothing anybody can say to make it better, really, that to kind of miss out on some things. But I am proud of you. I do love you guys, and I hope I'll get a chance to see you all soon.